Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Silver Creek Dragons podcast. I am your host, Dr. Chad Briggs, School Superintendent. The Dragons podcast aims to bring you information about students, staff, and programs throughout the Silver Creek School Corporation. And today, for the first time, we have a Silver Creek Dragons video podcast. So hello to all of our listeners. Thank you for listening. Today, I am joined by our school board president, Mr. Chris Rountree. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
We appreciate you being here. And today, we're gonna hit on a couple topics. One a little bit more in depth than the other, but we recently put out to our stakeholders a survey with information about our school start times and end times. Chris, can you give us a little background into why the school board has chosen at this time to review our school start and end times?
Sure. This actually came up quite a few months ago. With the start of construction, it was talked about, do we need to stagger start times a little bit more to kind of help with the traffic pattern? In addition to that, with the new project coming out here in front of the elementary school and the middle school, was that going to impact it anymore at all? When we started those discussions, it was then, a couple of board members had brought up statistics surrounding later start times in students. So we went down quite a few different avenues over probably a 6 or 7 month period of time. Got a lot of feedback, and ultimately, we're here now engaging kind of that final, before we make a final decision, the stakeholders in the corporation itself. Mm-hmm.
Great. And just to make sure our listeners are on the same page, we currently have one construction project going on that's taking place behind Silver Creek High School with our outdoor facilities. We also have already finished adding new drop-off and pickup lanes for the elementary and a new transportation bus lot. And then as we move forward here in the next several weeks, we're going to start a major project here inside the high school. And if you've driven around our campus here before school or after school, there is a delicate window where it's pretty crowded.
It is.
And we know that if nothing changes, it's going to get even more, as Chris just mentioned about the construction out on the highway here, but then you add our construction crews as such. Also, our current start times for our primary and elementary is approximately 8:10 a.m., and our start time for the middle and high schools is 7:40 a.m., and that's where, the research comes in. How much later can we move those start times back to help our kids get a little bit more rest? Chris, so it came up in our conversations in our work sessions. Why don't we just flip the start times, have the primary and elementary start first and get out first, and in the middle and high schools start later and get out later? Talk to us a little bit about why that probably does not work for us.
Well, I think we would all love that. I mean, that was actually one of the very first things that we talked about was, research shows that high school, middle school kids probably, a later start time benefits them more, a little earlier start time benefits primary and elementary school age students. The biggest problem we have is Prosser. We have quite a few kids in our high school that take advantage of Prosser in the classes that are offered there. So we're almost a little bit tied to the New Albany-Floyd County schedule. We have just a little bit of room, but to flip the high school to an 8:40 start time would mean that the Prosser students wouldn't be able to take advantage of the AM classes.
Yeah, and just to confirm, Prosser right now, our high school kids who go there get there about 8 o'clock, and that's right
Correct.
On schedule. Now there are times where if the bus is running behind, that is fine as well. Chris, we'll talk a little bit about why don't we just add some more bus routes, more buses, more drivers. That way that we can take kids to Prosser and we can do our students, drop them off when we want them to be. Talk a little bit about why that is a major obstacle.
Well, Ted, I think we would all love if we had an endless supply of buses and bus drivers. But, the one thing that I'm very proud about our corporation this year is you turn on the news, we've seen multiple school corporations that have had to cancel routes. Families wake up in the morning, to get a phone call that the bus for their child is not operating that day because of the lack of drivers. We're very, very fortunate that that hasn't happened with us. And but we're right there on the cusp, as you know, of having just the right amount of bus drivers. We don't have any flexibility. I mean, we have a director of transportation that sometimes has to fill in as a bus driver, and we have a mechanic that sometimes has to fill in as a bus driver. So we've made it work. There is a bus driver shortage across the entire United States, and I would say even if the budget would allow for more buses and bus drivers, being able to fill them would probably be an issue, would be my guess.
Right. Yep. No, it would. And there's a driver shortage right here in our part of the state as well, and throughout the state. Okay. So we sent a survey out late last week. Wanted to get input from all of our employees, from our families. And so talk to us a little bit about what does the school board anticipate gaining from this survey?
So I think one of the biggest things we want to get feedback on is from multiple points of view, not just from a board perspective, and I know you've had multiple conversations with building administration and transportation department, the SCTA, the teachers union, but those are somewhat limited points of view. We want to hear from the parents too. Does this provide a hardship for you or your family? And we're not going to be able to please everybody. I think we know that. But if we have a big overwhelming majority, and I can't even put a percentage on it, but let's say 70% or 80% that this does not work for, then we may need to go back to the drawing board. Right. But the one thing I do want to say is these times are not necessarily, they're not set in stone. This is, we will have another work session, and I think we've already come up with maybe a couple of different alternatives that may be the best decision for us, if even a decision is made to change them. So, the start times in the survey, I think there was a big misconception that those were set in stone. They're not. Right. That is just a starting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And anytime you're seeking input or having individuals answer a survey, you got to start somewhere. Correct. And the opposite of what we've done would be, hey, what if we want to start school later? Well, that would have not been very good. Absolutely. Because people would have wondered how much later. So no, that's an excellent point. So the survey is open until Friday, February 17th. That survey link can be found on our school corporation website at www.scsc.school. And once those survey results are in and the board has had some time to analyze it, Chris, talk to us. What can our community expect after that?
Well, I think I think it's a kind of a multitude of situations. Number one, we need to determine if the survey is going to provide us the best results. We know that there was a glitch with the survey when it first came out. Okay, so probably the first 3 days or so, I'm not sure we got accurate in all responses, and so we did make a change, sent it back out, but we're not exactly sure, how many of the, what percentage of that it affected. As a board, we may elect to come back out with another survey and do a better due diligence of making sure that the survey is ready to go before we send it out. But we also will use the data to help guide decisions. I know that there's probably a little misconception that this was something that was off the cuff, where we didn't do a whole lot of research behind it. That is 100% false. There's as we mentioned before, numerous meetings, numerous discussions, but we also want to use the data that it's all for naught. We want to use that data to be able to help us gain information on the best decision for our corporation.
Okay, sounds good. So again, if you've not had a chance to fill out the survey, please do so. And once those results are in, there'll be future meetings that the board will hold to share the results. And I know there's been talk about potentially putting together a committee. I think there's even a question on the survey. I think what's key for our listeners to remember is that the school board wants your input. The school board has done a fantastic job of doing their due diligence and brainstorming and getting everyone's perspective. And please remember, this is just part of the information gathering process, that no final decisions have been made as of now. And when the board gets closer to that, we will be sure to communicate that out to everyone. So, Chris, before we switch topics, is there anything else you want to include on the school start times?
No, just the fact we appreciate any of the feedback that we can get. We want to be able to use stakeholder information to be able to help guide us for what's best for the corporation as a whole. Yeah. And it's not just one group or one set, whether it be parents or staff or children. It's ultimately about the children, and it's about, in addition to that, safety's first. So we're going to take the safety component, the kids component, the learning environment for the kids, what's best for the corporation.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And then we'll wrap things up here with the topic of construction. So now that we have our captured audience here listening, as I mentioned earlier, our outdoor facilities, our drop-off and pickup for the elementary, and our transportation lot are up and running, are currently on track to be finished on time. Chris, talk a little bit about what's next here with the high school project. I know all of us are very excited and anxious for that work to begin. We had hoped for it to begin last fall or into winter, but just due to the pricing of bids and everything that came in, was not best for us. So tell our listeners what they can expect here in the coming weeks.
Well, hopefully they can get back on the roller coaster and get the high, right? I think anybody around here will tell you that it's been a valley of highs and lows. We were on a real big high when we put out the package and we went out to bid, and we thought we were going to be starting construction this winter, to only face a real low in the fact that bids came in about $10 million over budget. So we had to punt, and we had to sit back and take a look at how can we do what is right for our taxpayers. And that was maybe do a little bit of value engineering, look at different aspects of how we can save money to get the most out of what we have. Ultimately, and unfortunately, that was to terminate our contract with our construction company. They were unwilling to go back to the drawing board and look at different options to save us money. So we found a new construction company, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, absolutely. And I really think that we'll be back out to bid in March. We had hoped it would be in February, but it took a little bit of time to help with get some of those value engineering prospects to the table. But man, I'm really hoping to see this summer, we should see actual dirt moving in front of the school instead of behind.
Yep, it's going to be an exciting yet interesting summer and beyond. But yeah, the sooner we start, the sooner we can finish.
That is correct.
So, okay, well, thank you, Chris. I sure do appreciate your time and your insight. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Silver Creek Dragons podcast. I hope you found today's episode informative. You can find the Dragons podcast on our school corporation website. Please share this podcast with family and friends as we highlight the amazing people and the quality education students receive in Silver Creek School Corporation.